The Mariana Trench is the deepest oceanic trench in the entire world, and for someone who gets the heebie-jeebies from thinking about water any deeper than I can see past, it's one of the scariest places I can think of. But despite its unending depths that send me into existential panic, there are still places around the world that seem even scarier to me. So let's get this ball rolling, because today we're talking about the top 10 places scarier than the Mariana Trench you should definitely never visit. Starting us off at number 10, the Sedlec Ossuary. From the outside, this church wouldn't really make anyone bat an eye. Located in the Czech Republic, it appears to be a run-of-the-mill Gothic church. But on the inside, well, that's a whole different story. Nicknamed the Church of Bones, this church is quite literally floor-to-ceiling skeletons down to the chandelier and everything. This whole thing started back in 1278 when the King of Bohemia sent the abbot of the Sedlec Monastery to Jerusalem. When the abbot returned from his trip, he brought back holy soil, and soon everyone from miles away wanted to be buried in Sedlec, and so they needed to expand their cemetery. In the 15th century, the church was built and they used the basement to house the excess bones. Those bones stayed there for centuries until a woodcarver named František Rint was appointed to arrange them in 1870, which is what you see if you walk into the church today. Now, while people may have given up themselves willingly, that doesn't mean their spirits haunt it any less, and with that many bones in one place, I'm sure there are some evil ones in the crowd just waiting for an opportunity to torture the right person. Next up, at number 9, Chuuk Lagoon. Formerly known as Chuuk Lagoon, this haunted graveyard is located in Micronesia, 50 feet underwater, but it hasn't always been that way. Once upon a time, it was actually a base for the Japanese Navy in World War II that was heavily fortified with Imperial battleships, aircraft carriers, cruisers, destroyers, minesweepers, and submarines. But of course, this posed a huge threat to the Allies. So in 1944, over 3 days, the American Navy attacked the base, sinking hundreds of their planes and warships. Sometimes referred to as the Ghost Fleet of the Chuuk Lagoon, the remains of the lost ships remain today, and divers that visit say there is something that is just not right about the area. Inside the ship graveyards lie preserved gas masks, piles of bones, medicines, and even creepy operating tables. Some even say they've witnessed ghosts lurking around the ships and got so scared that they fled to the surface, fearing they might get trapped in the ship forever. Coming in at number 8, Aradale Asylum. Located in Victoria, Australia, this asylum opened back in 1867. It consisted of 60 different buildings and was almost like a small village containing orchards, markets, and vineyards. As with many institutions of the time, it was built to be self-sufficient, providing the patients with labor that was believed to help with their treatments. But sadly, during its 130 years in operation, over 13,000 patients and staff died at the asylum, and many claim to have witnessed dozens of different ghosts over the years. Those that have been to the building today report feeling nausea, lightheadedness, and random pains all over their body, while others say they've literally seen the ghosts of patients roaming the halls. One ghost in particular, called Nurse Carrie, is known to roam the women's ward, and some say they've seen her walk through walls. Others claim that when they went into a room used for shock therapy, they began feeling tingling in their heads, and if you dare enter the cursed J ward, you might even get bit. Coming in at number 7, Miyaki-Jima. Located about 180 kilometers south of Tokyo is the island of Miyaki-Jima. And although it's not haunted by some terrifying entity, it still might just be one of the last places I would want to visit. The island is the host to Mount Oyama, an active volcano, and is itself a stratovolcano, which, as far as volcanoes go, are just about the most dangerous and unpredictable you can get. Their last major eruption in 2000 required a complete evacuation of the island. But it's not just the chance that the volcano could erupt at any given moment, it's also that it emits poisonous sulfuric gas, pretty much no warning at all. So all 3,000 residents, as well as anyone who visits the island, is required to carry a gas mask with them at all times, otherwise you could literally die. And if the fatal poisonous gas, mandatory gas mask, and potential volcano eruption didn't deter you, I will mention that it's located in the Dragon's Triangle, which is essentially the Pacific equivalent to the Bermuda Triangle, and there have has been more than one report of vessels mysteriously disappearing while trying to cross. Next up at number 6, Paris catacombs. In 18th century Paris, cemeteries were at a near hopeless state. I mean, you could barely walk through town without smelling the rotting dead bodies, and they were quickly running out of places to put them all. So when King Louis XVI came into power, he enlisted his architect to build a system of underground catacombs to transfer all the bodies to. It allegedly took 12 years to transfer all the bodies, which is no surprise considering the remains of more than 6 million people can be found there. And as you've probably guessed, it's wicked haunted. And although many have dared to visit these winding maze tunnels, that doesn't mean it comes without risk. Visitors say they've seen strange orbs of light, taunting voices, and indescribable shadows lurking in the tunnel, while others say they've literally seen ghosts. But the biggest reason to fear the tunnels is because many that enter never return. Coming in at number 5, Borley Rectory. Built in 1862 by Reverend Henry Dawson Bull, the residents of Essex today consider this to be the most haunted house in all of England. But even before it was Reverend Bull's family home, it already came with a haunting reputation. Previously, a monk and a nun who lived in nearby buildings had fallen in love. The secret couple would sneak out at night to see each other, as they knew they could never show their true feelings in public. One day, they decided they were going to run away together and elope. But on their way out of town, they were caught. The monk was hanged and the nun was imprisoned in the basement of the convent until she eventually died. Years later, when the Bull family moved in, it didn't take too long before they started to notice something was wrong. Even though the building was new, the grounds beneath it housed the tortured spirits, and they did not make themselves strangers to the family. They'd report hearing running water inside, despite there being no indoor plumbing in the house. One of the daughters was especially haunted by the nun and said she was slapped on her cheek and had a red mark to prove it. Maybe the monk and nun were just jealous to see someone else living the life they yearn for, or maybe an even darker spirit is haunting its halls. Coming in at number 4, Screaming Tunnel. Located in Niagara Falls, Ontario, this tunnel lies underneath a railway track and was originally constructed as a drainage tunnel for the nearby farmland. But nowadays, it's more well known for the ghost who haunts it and the soul-crushing story of how she got trapped. As the legend goes, a few hundred years ago, a girl lived in a nearby farmhouse with her mother and father. Her father was an alcoholic and a very violent man who hurt her and her mother frequently. One day, the mother said enough is enough. She told him she was leaving and taking the girl with her. But the father, in a drunken rage, screamed at the mother and knocked her unconscious. The girl, afraid for her life, ran as fast as she could and decided to hide in the nearby tunnel until things cooled off. Only moments later, she heard her father approaching, and next thing she knew, he was dousing her in some kind of liquid, but it was too dark to tell what. As the father left the tunnel, he threw a match, and that girl died, screaming so loudly that the whole town could hear. Ever since, anyone who enters the tunnel with a lit match sees the spirit of the girl for only a moment before the fire dies out and she screams so loud that you feel like your ears just might burst. Next up at number 3, Poveglia Island. It might be a small, gorgeous dot of land in the Venice Lagoon, but this island is far from a picture-perfect Italian destination. After already losing roughly half of the Venetian population to the Black Death in 1347, by the 1400s the people of Venice discovered the concept of quarantine and felt they'd hit a gold mine. So by the time the subsequent outbreaks occurred, they started sending over anyone with even the mildest symptoms to nearby islands, most famously Poveglia Island. The infected populace was forced to remain quarantined on the island for 40 days, but without any actual cure available, pretty much everyone still died, and so it became a mass gravesite, incinerating most of the dead bodies so as not to let the disease spread. Then in the 20th century, it became a mental institution, and its reputation only got worse. Allegedly, the experiments performed on the patients were so unethical and so cruel that the doctor responsible took his life to try and escape the crimes he had caused. But others think he was tormented by the thousands of ghosts ghosts already haunting the island, and ended his life to escape their torments. Either way, it's riddled with terrifying spirits, and the last place you should visit if you plan on going to Italy. Coming in at number 2, Highgate Cemetery. One of the magnificent 7 cemeteries outside London, and I'm not kidding, that is the real name of them. Highgate was established in 1839 during a time when church cemeteries started becoming overwhelmed by the amount of burials required. To date, roughly 170,000 people have been laid to rest on its grounds, and despite that incredible number, it's not the many laid to rest here that you need to fear, but one 7-foot-tall phantom who locals call the Highgate Vampire. The rumors began in the early 1960s when 2 teenagers claimed to see the dead rising from their graves as they walked down through the cemetery late one night. Soon others started coming forward, saying they saw a horrid black figure with red eyes lurking behind the gates. Next thing you know, authorities were getting hundreds of reports, all claiming to see a dark, shadowy figure in the night. But it all started to be taken seriously once police started finding animal carcasses drained of their blood around the cemetery grounds. Soon the story was sensationalized by the press and residents, and a manhunt to kill the vampire was organized. Graves were vandalized, and some corpses even beheaded in hopes it would stop the phantom from haunting the premises. And last up in our number 1 spot, Island of Dolls. I don't know about you guys, but I have always got bad vibes from dolls. Like, there is just something about them that I don't trust, and it's not just because of Chucky, although I'm sure that movie didn't help. Located in Mexico, this island has a reputation for being one of the most haunted places in the world. Legend has it that a girl died drowning here, and when a man named Julian Barrera moved to the island, he was tormented by the girl's spirit. In an attempt to please her, he began hanging dolls across the island, but it seems the dolls weren't enough to please the spirit, as later Julian convinced his nephew that she needed a friend to join her in the afterlife. The nephew's body was later found in the canal at the very same spot where the girl died years prior. Those who dare visit the island today feel as if the dolls are alive, and report that their eyes move and watch them as they walk across it. Some claim it's not just their eyes, but also their hands that move, and that the dolls will laugh and whisper behind your back as you walk past. To summarize, it's a no for me. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.